Okay. Once there was, and once there was not, O best beloved, a witch woman, and her name was Ceridwen, which means white sow, and she calls herself this because she shares some pretty nasty habits with that porky beast. She's not all bad though, and I hope you will come to see. She lived, or will soon perhaps one day live, in a tower. Now this tower contains 11 marvellous marble halls, each very different to the last. It is built upon a steep rock in the middle of a lake of still night-deep waters, somewhere upon these islands of the mighty, wherein we make our home. Now with the witch woman in her tower, there live also an inky black crow of great size, this creaky cranky old blind man, and the witch woman's son. Now he, I'm sorry to say, is somewhat of a monster, hideous to look upon, with a personality to match. He has been known as Caliban, Movran, and a Fagthi, amongst other names, at different times and in different places. He is full of fear and confusion, and his favourite pastime is to torment defenceless creatures. He pulls these and everything else he comes across apart in an attempt to find out how things work. He's been busy cutting things into tiny little pieces for many, many years, and from time to time he has found out how things work, but never why. In fact, he has barely even thought to question why. Despite his lack of charm, he is her son, and Ceridwen loves him very dearly indeed. She's not totally blind to her offspring's shortcomings, however, and has so decided to concoct for him a spell of wisdom. And so we come to our hero of sorts, young Gwion. The witch woman had flown through the nighttime sky one evening and crept into his parents' house one night as they slept. Then kidnapped the poor boy from his bed. She carried him, crying pitifully, to her tower. Now Ceridwen felt no remorse for this horrible deed, I'm sorry to say. You see, the spell's instructions stated she'd be simmered gently for a year and a day, stirring regularly. And as a busy single-parent mum, the witch felt it well within her rights in bringing in help. So Gwion was charged with the task of stirring the cauldron, and he did this faithfully day and night. And although he became utterly weary, the witch would not let him rest. In fact, she would beat him if she thought he was slacking. The year passed oh so slowly for young Gwion. But then, on the very last day of the spell's cooking time, the liquid bubbled and splashed, and 3 drops of the viscous brew flew out and landed upon Gwion's finger. He cried out in pain and put the burnt finger into his mouth. So, Gwion had tasted the spell meant for the witch's son, and it was Gwion who became suddenly wise. He knew everything. Worlds beyond count opened up before him like crystalline flowers. The cauldron burst into 1,000 pieces. He knew the secret of the tower's 11th hall, and all that was, and all that is, and all that could potentially be. He saw the secret of the towers. He saw the crossroads at which the earth stands, poised between creation and destruction. And he knew that within him he had the power and the understanding, that he held the knowledge within him and the power to ensure the correct pathway be taken. Sorry, I fucked that right up. He knew also at that moment that the witch was at the North Pole gathering herbs. But as he became aware of her, so she became aware of him and of what had transpired. "You have tasted the spell meant for my son," she screamed, and like a comet trailing the cold fire of her anger, she came flying down over the earth, her intention to murder young Gwion for stealing her son's legacy. Scene 6. Realising what the witch had planned, Gwion sought to escape her. He found that he could suddenly, effortlessly shift his shape into that of any living form. He felt his legs change into the strong hind legs of a hare, bearing him speedily away across the fields. The witch, being an old hand at this game, however, was soon hot on his heels, in the shape of a slavering white hound, sharp of tooth, extremely hot. As he sighted a stream ahead, Gwion the hare jumped in, transforming into a quicksilver slippery small fish. All too soon, though, a sly, sleek otter swam close behind him, through the reeds and rushes where he hid, seeking him out. Up through the sparkling water, breaking the surface into the bright sun, the fish grew wings and flew away from him as a small bird. Alas, again, the air behind him was soon stirred by the beating wings of a huge white eagle. Gwion was nearing the end of his strength and desperate to hide. He sighted a farm ahead and dropped to the floor of the granary, becoming an ear of wheat in a mountain of grains, each identical to himself. Alas, not much time had passed before a menacing shadow loomed over him. You guessed it, the witch again, this time in the shape of a horrible great hen. Quick as a flash, down came her red beak and gobbled him up. So, Gwion was in the witch's belly, and he grew there into a baby. 9 months passed, and then Cerridwen gave birth to him. Her wrath had not cooled, though, however. "Now I can kill you, you thief," she hissed. Then she looked at him, such a beautiful baby. She couldn't do it. She could not do it. Disgusted with him and with herself, she tied him into a sack and threw him into the river. The river carried the sack with the baby in it leagues downstream, slowly towards the sea, past myriad lives and places, until one day they came to rest by a weir. An old man was fishing there one day, and suddenly felt his net catch on something quite large. Imagine his surprise when he pulled from the water not a fish but a baby, the most beautiful baby he had ever seen. So the kindly old man took the baby home to his wife, and they raised him together as their son, whom they named Taliesin. The years passed by, and Taliesin grew into a young man with the brightest green eyes and a voice so beautiful that folks came from miles around to hear him, even though the songs he sang were strange and unsettling. Word of his talent grew until it reached the court, and the king came to hear of him. Now his heart had been troubled of late, surrounded by men who whispered lies in his ears, each trying to sway the king to their own purpose. Some even urged the king to dig too deep into the earth over which the king had guardianship. Taliesin received a summons from the court one day to the castle to take part in a contest of poetry. So he bade farewell to the old man and woman and set out upon the road. His song and verse proved far more magical than any other, and he easily won the competition. The king asked him to remain at the court to become his chief advisor. He grew to love Taliesin, who taught the king new respect and love for his people and his land, and taught the king and inspired him to protect the land from those who wished to harm her. And if you are lucky and keep your eyes and ears open, Taliesin can be found still, travelling the highways and the byways, singing his beautiful songs. Right, that's the gist of it.